Hi there, BookTube! Another weekly wrap up, this one from June the 26th through to the 2nd of July. The first one I read was Sweet Home Cowboy by Marin Thomas, and this is the 9th book in the Love at the Chocolate Shop series, and it's a romantic contemporary series that has a handful of different authors that write them together. Each book follows a different pair during the course of the book, learns to love each other in one way or another, and all of the books take place in Marietta, which is a small town in Montana, and it's just very charming and sweet. I just enjoy them. They're fun and easy and cute, but also not overly fluffy or overly strange. They don't have any sex in them, so that is nice to see as in an adult romance series as well. They are not insta-lovey or overly dramatic. They're just nice romantic moments, and I highly recommend the series. This specific book was about a first grade teacher that lives in Las Vegas and travels to Marietta for family reasons, and a local cowboy, and it's just as cute and fun and just entertaining as it sounds. The writing is always nice and the characters all likable in my option, and this one was no different at all. It was very entertaining. I loved it, and so I gave it 4 stars, and as I said, highly recommend this entire series. So if you guys looking for a new cute and not sexed up romance contemporary adult book, check out the series. It will definitely be for you. The next book I read was The Child by Fiona Barton, which is a mystery book about 3 women that don't know each other, but all of them read the same paragraph in the evening newspaper that talks about a decade-old tragedy that neither of the women can ignore. This was my first Barton book. I heard so many people rave about her, so when I saw this book, I just took my chance, and Natalie thankfully approved me for it, but sadly this book did not work for me. It felt very rushed, and at the same time it had incredibly slow and boring pacing, where a good chunk of the pages felt like nothing was happening at all, and I just wanted anything finally happen so that the story would speed up, the plot would finally be moving again. The characters all felt boring to me, all very flat and one-sided, and I just didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't like any of the characters. I felt like there could have been more to the story. The plot itself was also very predictable, since sadly you know what the big mystery and what the big secret is from the second you meet the first character in the book. So in the first 5 pages you know what the mystery is all about, and that is just not what I like in my mysteries. And while I can see the potential in Barton's writing style, this book was clearly not one of her best works. I felt very much like she wrote this book because she had to write it. Her first book was a success, so she had to finish the second one. She had to put it out. She had a deadline to work towards. She didn't actually manage to work and plan out the plot and develop everything in this book as she could have and would have if she would have had more time. So to me, the entire book had this feel of being underdeveloped, unfinished, and just very rushed in general. And that is just sad when that happens and you can actually read that in the pages, and I gave it 2 stars because it was quite disappointing. And the next book I read was another new release, and that was Spoonbenders by Daryl Gregory. This is about a family that achieves fame during the 1970s in America because of their magical and mind-reading acts, until their magic decides to disappear one night, live on national television. And the actual book starts when the grandson, 2 decades after this public fall of the family, discovers that he has powers. And he's the first one in generations to have that, so the family is very excited about that, naturally. And I was expecting this very strange book, clearly, because we go into this book knowing that it is about a family that is able to perform magic. But this book was honestly just way too strange for me to be enjoyable, especially since the opening scene of this book was not at all what I enjoy. So when this book started out and we are greeted with the masturbation scene right off the bat, and we are not only greeted with that nice image of a teenage boy getting himself off, we are also greeted with this nice mental image of a male cousin getting himself off in a closet while watching his female cousin. And that is just no, people, no. Can we please move on from sexualizing family members between family members? Because that is just no. Clearly, the start of that book did not work for me. Still, I read it because, For one, it was a review book, so I didn't want to let that starting scene of that masturbation stop me. I read the entire book, and it was quite boring and moving in a way too slow pacing for me to really get invested in it. The constant switching between all of the characters was also not something that worked for me in this book, since I always felt like the one character I actually thought was telling something interesting was always the one that had the shortest amount of pages throughout the entire book, and the character that I really didn't care about at all had the most. For me to actually enjoy a book after that kind of opening scene and that kind of big no for me is to pack this really, really big punch, and this one just did not impress me at all. It doesn't have this big upwards climb after that rather terrible start for me. But if you love a very strange book, and if you don't mind slow pacing and unnecessary many character points of views and completely stupid masturbation scenes but pretty decent writing, give this one a try. But if you don't, stay away from this one. I gave this book quite generously, feeling 2 stars. And after those 2 books, I wanted something that I might enjoy a bit more. I picked up The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson, and this book is about a princess named Clea that is supposed to marry a prince from a different kingdom, but she never met him before, so instead of going through with the marriage, she runs away on her wedding day, and on her way out the door, she steals some ancient documents. That makes her father send out bounty hunters. We also have a second male character, and that is the prince that also runs after her to find her. What makes this book a bit more unique, but we don't necessarily know which male is which. Of course, you can figure it out if you really want to without any problems, but still I think that it's a nice spin on the typical love story in this type of book, because Pearson didn't do a bad job of writing those 2 male characters and not right away showing which one is which. As you guys can guess from that, I enjoyed this book. The writing was wonderful, the characters entertaining. It has funny moments, it has sad moments, it has really heartbreaking moments in the story. It has a wonderful mixture of all of those, so it was a great read. Interesting twists and turns in the story that I couldn't always foresee, so that was wonderful to see as well. I also loved that the romance side of the story never overtook the entire plot. It was not the main focus of the story. I do enjoy romance books, as you guys can tell, especially from the last couple of weekly wrap-ups. I always had at least one romance book in them. If I pick up a fantasy book, I don't really love it if it only focuses completely on romance. So it was really nice to see that Pearson didn't sink into that and just focused on something else as well. So I gave this book 4 stars and highly recommend it. After that one, I felt like giving a bit of a shorter read a try, even though I actually didn't plan on reading this, and that is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shannon McGuire. This is the second book in the Wayward Children series or trilogy, but it's actually a prequel to the first book, since we learn the story of the twins Jack and Jill that we meet in the first book. This book was really fantastic. I was really not expecting that, since I didn't love the first one. Every Heart Doorway was okay, but nothing special and not deserving of the huge hype it got. The second one really deserves all the hype that surrounded that first book. It was an even higher level of marvelous done writing. I loved how the story was told. I loved how at the start of the story we had parents that clearly were not good parents, but at the same time they were not doing anything horrendously bad. They just had no idea how to be a good parent. I loved how McGuire wrote so honestly and realistic and quite dryly and factual about what happened and how the twins grew up in that kind of environment until they got into the other world through their doorway. It just worked really well for me, and I really respected how he clearly didn't like this type of parent, but also didn't make them out to be monsters. It was also wonderful to see that one of the twins had a version of OCD where it was more focused on the compulsion disorder part of the OCD, and that is featured so rarely, so it was wonderful to see that in a book. I also had the same sex relationship, so once again McGuire really writes a good mixture of diversity into his story without constantly pointing out the hey, I wrote diversity, so that was wonderful. The only thing I didn't really love that in more than a handful of moments throughout this book just reminded me a lot of both Dracula and Frankenstein. And while I didn't really mind that, I think that McGuire could have done a way better job making this book look as if he was retelling both of those classics, because he clearly can write very unique and different stories in a wonderful way. So I didn't really understand why he added those features of both Dracula and Frankenstein so heavily. It's just a personal thing for me that while I read the book, it kept reminding me of those two classics, but I just don't really enjoy if I read a book and it's constantly reminding me of another story I read already. So I have a lot more I could and might say about this book, since I'm thinking about doing an entire separate review about this one. If you're interested in seeing that, please let me know in the comments. All in all, this book was a great read and I highly recommend it, especially if you are a bit unsure and underwhelmed by the first one. I highly recommend the second one because it is worlds better than the first one. I gave this book 4 stars. And the last 2 books I finished during the week were Geek Girl and Model Misfit, both by Holly Small. In this series, we follow Harriet, who is labeled a geek in her school because she really enjoys knowledge and learning and just generally cares about her grades, and that was wonderful to see. We follow her as she more or less becomes a model by accident, and after that tries to see how she can balance her life with modeling and school, as well as just trying to be somebody that people around her might like more than she's liked at the beginning of the book. This series is fun and very silly. It's still a nice, entertaining read. It's clearly targeted towards the younger age group of young adults, not only because Harriet in the books is 15 in both of them, but also because the writing and the over-the-top stupid and silly moments, depending on who you ask, really, for me they were quite stupid, but it's just written in a way that makes it feel really young. It was still enjoyable and I did get exactly what I wanted while reading both of them. It's just some brainless entertainment and fun. If you enjoy the easy and fun type of books and nothing yet you have to think about while reading, go for those. They're fun, they're easy, they're silly, they're just entertaining and you're reading something and it's just fun. But I gave both of those books 3 stars. Those were all 7 books I finished during this week. As always, I would love to hear what you guys thought about any of the books. If you have read any of them or if you plan to read any of them, let's chat in the comments. Tell me what books you have read during the week. Please let me know if you want a full review of Among the Sticks and Bones from me, or if you are not interested at all in that review, let me know that as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to my channel. And I hope to see you in my next one. And until then, in the comments. Bye.